Hi, this is Christine. It is October 16, 2014. It's in the evening, kind of like late afternoon, early evening. The reality of my kingdom, God talks about. It's about people who have once walked with Him, but have turned to their own foolishness. Their hearts grew cold. And they don't understand the futility of carnal living, meaning the nonsense of it. He wants us to wake up and to stir up our faith and to trust in Him. For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness. This is 2 Peter 2, verse 21 and 22. Than having known it, to turn from the holy commandment delivered to them. But it has happened to them according to the true proverb, a dog returns to his own vomit, and a sow, having washed, returns to wallowing in the mire. The reality of God's kingdom. If God is our King, and if we're so-called, quote, professed Christians, then the Lord is our King. I want you to imagine being up at the throne room. You're up in heaven. This is how, when I go to visit the Lord, this is how I see it. It's like a big white, I don't want to call it a room, because it's not a room. There's no end to it. But it's just all white up there. Sometimes there are other people up there, like angels, people in white. Sometimes they're singing. Sometimes there are just people standing on the left and the right. They're not doing anything. Sometimes there can be a crowd of people. Sometimes there's horses. Sometimes it's just me by myself. But I'm always dressed in white and always have my angel wings on me. And the Lord's throne is upstairs. There are stairs that you walk up, and then His throne sits up high. This is what I imagine. And everything's all white. There's a bunch of light, because He is light. And I always stay at the bottom. I don't dare step up on any of the steps. I stay at the bottom. I usually kneel or bow myself on my knees with my head facing the ground. I don't dare look at the Lord either sometimes, not unless He tells me. But I usually come before Him in all humility, and He already knows my petition, but I thank Him and I ask Him anyways. And then He usually has me stand up and He talks to me like a normal person standing in front of you. But I always try to come before Him in humility, bowed. If He's our King, and He is, then He is standing around you at all times. He's in front of you. He's behind you. He's to the side of you. He's inside of you. He knows what your brain is thinking, what your intents are, your motivations. If you're planning on going to a certain restaurant, He already knows it. He knows the thoughts in your head, and that's where you're headed. He knows what your heart is doing and thinking. Is it looking for a man, for somebody to love? Or is your heart looking to please and serve the Lord? He knows everything. Now, if you were to go before the King or Queen of England You would want to obey them. If you're British, you want to obey them. And with a king, if you are irreverent or disrespectful and things like that, I mean, you already know British history. They just chop your head off. Thankfully, the Lord's not like that. Although, we do have martyrs, but that's a different subject. If somebody is a king over you, you obey orders. You are the servant. You obey orders, you obey commands. You do as you're instructed. If you don't, then he's not really your king. Who is your king then? It's self. Self is sitting on the throne of your heart. And it's having you go and do whatever you want, whatever you feel like. If it feels good, go do it. That's how self works. Today in Anna's video, she was talking about squatters and people sitting on your land, on your throne, and really they're not the king. They're not your king, but they have been sitting on the throne of your heart or of your head. And the Lord is changing that. And this revelation is what came to me this morning. And then this was before I watched Anna's video. But what we need to realize is that the usurper, the squatter, the person who's been sitting on the throne of our heart and of our mind has been self. It hasn't been the Lord. And you want to look at yourself, because your deeds and your actions will tell you who's really ruling and reigning on the throne in your heart and in your mind. And I had that revelation today that it had been self that was sitting on my throne. I had the Lord, yeah, but there was a fight going on, because myself wanted to do things, and then the Lord wanted me to do things too, and I would have the duel going on inside of me. But it's not that way anymore, guys. You want to look at yourself and find out who is really king in your life. Who are you obeying? Whose commands are you carrying out? Are you following? Because we're moving into a new phase. We're coming to the end of one thing and we're moving into the new of another. And the reason I know that it's already taken effect in me is because something happened to me today for another person, and my nature would have been to not be too happy with what they had done. But instead, I had the Lord sitting in my head, and I was looking at the person and the situation in a completely different light. There was no judgment. It was almost like I was sitting above it, looking down upon the scenario. I was not part of it. I was just looking down, observing it. When in real life, I was part of it. But in my spirit, the Lord had separated me from it. So I already knew that God had changed my mind and my heart. He was sitting on the throne, because I'd been praying. I asked him after I had this revelation. I knew what I needed to do was to ask for it. And that's what I did. And the Lord, He has answered. Because when that happened, I had a totally different mindset of how I would have normally reacted. reacted, and it was like being above it and seeing it from an overview, non-judgmental position of love and mercy. And that's not how I would normally see things. So just want to encourage you guys to look at your mind, look at your heart, and the Lord is in and around you. He knows your thoughts, He knows your heart, what you love, what you don't love, what you want, what you're going to go do. And ask yourself those things that you wanted to go do. Is it self that's motivating you, or is it the Lord telling you to go do those things? Because if it's self, then you still have the wrong person on your throne. And we're changing, guys. So, you know, we're moving into the university. Like Anna said, we're moving up another notch. So you want to make sure the right person is on your throne. God is kicking out the squatters, and the squatter is self. And you know what? Just let him go. So hope this helps somebody else. It's just what came to me today. Alright, take care, guys, and God bless and take care. Bye-bye.